The Galactic Empire had watched Earth for centuries, hidden in the shadows of deep space. From their distant worlds, they had seen the rise of humanity, how a small primitive species had slowly gained the power to shape their own destiny. They observed as humans invented new technologies, explored their planet, and pushed the boundaries of science. But now, Earth had caught the Empire's attention for another reason. They were no longer just a curious species. They were a threat. One day, without warning, Earth's skies were torn open by a signal, an ancient cold transmission that hummed with power. It echoed across the globe, loud enough to be heard in every corner of the planet. Governments scrambled to decode the message, unsure if it was some kind of mistake or a true warning. It was a simple phrase, chilling in its simplicity. Asterisk colon warning is issued. Prepare yourselves. Asterisk. The message was clear, and it was terrifying. A threat from the stars. At first, there was confusion. Was it an alien hoax, some kind of joke played by an unknown group? But as hours passed, panic set in. The major powers of Earth, from the United States to China to Russia, began to react. Scientists tried to analyze the signal, but it was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It wasn't a radio transmission from a distant planet or a satellite glitch. It was real, and it was aimed directly at them. The message, simple but direct, had been sent by an unknown force far more advanced than anything on Earth. The United Nations quickly called an emergency meeting. The world's leaders gathered in a state of panic, unsure of how to react. The Prime Minister of England, Sarah Miles, sat at the front of the conference room, her face grim. She had seen many crises in her years in politics, but this was something entirely different. "We cannot be sure of who sent this," she said, looking around at the room of tense faces. "But if it is a threat, we must respond with strength." A general from the United States, General James Thornton, stood up. "This could be a simple warning, a test of some sort. We don't know who we're dealing with yet." But a voice from the back interrupted. It was Dr. Sophia Hargrave, one of the world's leading experts on alien technology. She had been quietly studying extraterrestrial life for years, and even though she didn't have proof of anything, she felt a deep chill run down her spine. "This isn't just a test," Dr. Hargrave said, her voice firm. "This is a direct message. They know who we are, and they are not asking us to prepare. They are telling us to prepare. This is not the work of a peaceful race. We need to take this seriously." The room fell silent. Everyone felt the weight of her words. In the days that followed, the world watched as the signal continued to broadcast across Earth, spreading panic and confusion. News outlets ran stories, showing the same terrifying message over and over. The global stock markets crashed, and people began to panic. Some nations chose to prepare for war, while others tried to negotiate. But the truth was clear. Whatever was out there, watching them from the stars, was not interested in diplomacy. Meanwhile, hidden from the public eye, a small group of scientists and military leaders began to plan in secret. They knew that Earth had no chance against such a powerful enemy, but they also knew something else. This warning, as terrifying as it was, might be their only chance. It was a gift. The Empire had made a mistake. It had shown its hand. And now, humanity would have to decide whether to face the unknown or submit to the power that had set its sights on Earth. As the signal from the Galactic Empire continued to echo through the atmosphere, fear gripped every corner of Earth. Governments and military leaders scrambled to find a solution. What could they do against an enemy so powerful, so unknown? The Empire's warning had shaken humanity to its core. No one had ever imagined that such a thing could happen. In the United States, President Allen Williams sat in the Oval Office, staring out the window at the Washington skyline. His hands were clasped tightly together, his mind racing. He had seen countless threats in his time as a leader, but none like this. His country was strong, but could it face an empire that spanned the stars? Could the world even come together in time to defend itself? "Mr. President," his advisor, Colonel Rachel Williams, said as she walked into the room. Her face was as serious as his. The world is falling apart. Nations are panicking. Some are calling for an immediate surrender, while others want to strike back. We need a united response, or we're finished. President Williams took a deep breath. He had always been a man of action, but this was different. This was beyond anything he had ever imagined. Have we learned anything new about the signal? We're still trying to decode it, Colonel Williams replied. But we do know one thing. It's real. And it's not a mistake. Across the world, similar discussions were taking place. Leaders in Russia, China, Europe, and Africa all faced the same questions. How could Earth defend itself against an empire that could destroy entire planets with ease? The military experts had no clear answers. Earth's technology, while advanced in some areas, was nothing compared to what they were up against. In the United Nations headquarters, the debate grew heated. Some nations called for submission, thinking it would be better to surrender and live under the empire's rule than risk annihilation. Others refused to give in, vowing to fight no matter the cost. A few smaller nations, unsure of which side to take, called for an immediate ceasefire and negotiations. The world was divided. Among the chaos, there was one voice that stood out. Dr. Sophia Hargrave, the scientist who had first recognized the empire's true intentions, was determined to make a difference. She had spent years studying alien technology and had a deep understanding of extraterrestrial life. If there was anyone who might know how to fight back, it was her. Dr. Hargrave was called to a secret meeting with the top leaders of Earth. As she entered the room, the tension was thick. The fate of the planet rested on their shoulders. "We need to know what we're dealing with," President Williams said, looking directly at Dr. Hargrave. "What are they after, and how can we stop them?" Dr. Hargrave took a deep breath. "The signal is just the beginning. The Empire's intentions are clear. They've been watching us for years. They know exactly how powerful we are, and they want to crush any chance of us becoming a threat to them." "What can we do?" another leader asked. "We fight back," Dr. Hargrave said. Her voice was calm, but there was fire behind her eyes. "We have a chance. We're not as weak as they think. They've underestimated humanity. We have technology they don't expect, and we have something they don't: unity. If we come together, we can defend this planet." The leaders exchanged glances, some still unsure. But Dr. Hargrave's words had ignited a spark. They knew that they had to act. The Empire was already on their doorstep. Time was running out. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Earth's military began to prepare for the worst. Scientists worked day and night to decode any alien technology they could get their hands on. Engineers started building weapons they hoped could stand up to the Empire's terrifying power. It was a race against time, and Earth was running out of it. The Empire's warning was not just a message, it was a challenge humanity could not afford to ignore. Earth was on the brink of war, and the world would soon find out if humanity could survive the gaze of the Galactic Empire. The Galactic Empire's fleet loomed over Earth, its ships filling the sky like dark clouds before a storm. They had arrived in orbit, just beyond the reach of Earth's atmosphere, their colossal presence a constant reminder of the power that was about to be unleashed. Grand Admiral Vakor, the leader of the Empire's military forces, stood at the helm of his flagship, watching the blue planet below. He had given the humans a warning, but they had not yet responded with the submission he expected. It irritated him. Vakor was a being of immense power and experience, having conquered countless worlds over centuries. To him, humanity was just another primitive species that needed to be crushed. He was certain that the one warning he sent would send the planet's leaders into panic and submission. But Earth was different. They were stubborn, fighting back in ways he had not anticipated. His patience was growing thin. On the ground, Earth's people were on edge. Cities were preparing for the worst. In the United States, military bases were on high alert, and defense systems were put into place. The skies were constantly monitored for any signs of the Empire's next move. The world's leaders had come together in a rare moment of unity, but the question remained: how could Earth defend itself against such an overwhelming force? Dr. Sophia Hargrave, still working with military strategists and scientists, had uncovered a startling discovery. She and her team had been studying the Empire's technology in detail, and they had found something that gave them hope. A small, seemingly insignificant piece of alien technology had been left behind after an earlier alien encounter. This technology, when modified with Earth's most advanced equipment, had the potential to match the Empire's energy weapons. It was a breakthrough, but a dangerous one. Earth had no time to waste, and they were not sure how long they could keep the Empire from striking. Still, Dr. Hargrave believed this was their best chance. The next few days would decide everything. At a top-secret military base in the Nevada desert, General James Thornton paced in front of a massive war table. Satellite images of the Empire's fleet were projected above it, showing the dark ships hovering just beyond Earth's atmosphere. His hands were tied around the edges of the table as he reviewed the reports. "We can't just wait for them to make the first move," General Thornton said to his team. "We don't know how many ships they have, or what kind of weapons they're packing. We need to make a strike before they can wipe us out." But as he spoke, the world's leaders were still divided. Some insisted on sending a diplomatic envoy to the Empire, hoping to reason with them. Others wanted to launch an immediate counterattack. In the chaos, a small group of resistance fighters had already begun to act. A covert group of military operatives, led by Captain Jonah Griffin, was assembled to infiltrate one of the Empire's hidden bases on Earth. If they could discover the true nature of the Empire's forces and perhaps sabotage their operations, it might give humanity a fighting chance. Captain Griffin was a man used to facing danger, but this mission was different. He didn't know what they were up against, and the Empire's technology was far beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. Yet, he knew one thing: the only chance they had was to act quickly. "Sir," his second-in-command, Lieutenant Carla Reyes, said as she approached him, "the team is ready. We go in tonight." Griffin nodded. "We're not just fighting for our lives, Carla. We're fighting for the future of Earth. If we fail, it's over. If we succeed, we may just have a shot." As the team prepared for their dangerous mission, the tension around the world continued to rise. People were afraid. The news showed footage of Empire ships in orbit, their dark shapes casting shadows over the planet. Humanity's first real test against a galactic empire was about to begin. The storm was coming, and Earth's only hope lay in the bravery of those willing to fight, even when the odds seemed impossible. As the dark ships of the Galactic Empire hovered above Earth, the world's leaders knew that time was running out. The Empire was patient, calculating. They had given humanity a warning, but the people of Earth had yet to submit. The question was no longer if the Empire would strike. It was when. The world waited in fear, with everyone wondering how they could survive the coming storm. Deep within a secret underground facility in the Nevada desert, Dr. Sophia Hargrave was working day and night. She had unlocked a crucial piece of the puzzle. The Empire's technology, which seemed invincible at first, had a flaw. It wasn't perfect. Earth's brightest minds, working together in hidden labs, had discovered that the Empire's communication systems could be hacked. If they could infiltrate their network, they might just be able to deceive the Empire into thinking Earth's military was far stronger than it really was. It was a risky plan. If the Empire realized what was happening, they would destroy Earth without hesitation. But Dr. Hargrave believed it was their best shot. If they could buy more time, Earth's resistance forces would have a chance to strengthen their defenses and strike back. "We don't have much time," Dr. Hargrave said, staring at the holographic map of the Empire's fleet in orbit. "We need to act quickly before they attack. If we can trick their ships into thinking we've built weapons they fear, it could delay their invasion. It'll give us the breathing room we need." General James Thornton, still focused on the war table, nodded. And how exactly do we do that? We plant a virus in their network, Dr. Hargraves said. The virus will send false data to their ships, making them believe that Earth has developed weapons that could rival their own. It'll make them second-guess their strategy. But we need someone inside their system, someone who can upload the virus without getting caught. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the stakes. The risk was enormous, but the payoff could be even greater. "We'll need a team to carry this out," said Colonel Rachel Williams, standing at attention. "Who do we trust with this mission?" There was only one answer. Captain Jonah Griffin, the leader of the elite resistance group, had already proven his bravery and tactical skill in the face of overwhelming odds. He and his team had already infiltrated one of the Empire's bases on Earth. They were the only ones who had the experience and nerve to carry out such a dangerous operation. "Captain Griffin's team is the best chance we have," Dr. Hargraves said. "They know how to stay hidden, and they can get in and out without leaving a trace." The plan was set. Griffin's team would infiltrate one of the Empire's remote bases on Earth and plant the virus deep within their systems. It would not be easy. They would have to avoid detection from the Empire's advanced security systems. Any mistake could lead to disaster. The fate of Earth would rest on their success. Meanwhile, as Griffin and his team prepared for the mission, the world was watching. The news channels were full of reports about the Empire's ships in orbit. People in cities all over the world feared the worst. Some even began to leave their homes, seeking refuge in underground bunkers, while others chose to face the storm head-on, ready to fight to the last breath. In every corner of the planet, Earth's resolve was growing. No one knew if they could win, but they knew they had no choice but to try. The world was united, no longer divided by borders or nations. Humanity had one goal: survival. Griffin's team suited up, their faces grim. They knew this mission was more than just a tactical strike. It was a symbol of humanity's defiance. And with that defiance, they would take the first step toward proving to the Empire that Earth was not a world to be conquered without a fight. The footsteps grew louder, and Griffin's team instinctively crouched, blending into the shadows. Their breaths were shallow, their hearts racing. The Empire's soldiers were on their way, and there was no way to hide now. They had been caught in the act, and there was no turning back. "Get to the exit, now," Griffin whispered, his voice sharp. He knew they had to leave the base before they were surrounded. The virus was already planted in the system. Now they had to get out without being caught. Specialist Lowe, the one who had uploaded the virus, nodded and began to move toward the exit. But as the team shifted to follow, a loud, piercing alarm blared through the facility. The lights flickered and flashed red. It was too late. They were already on the Empire's radar. The sound of heavy boots pounding on the metal floors echoed down the hallway. The team quickly split into two groups, hoping to confuse the enemy and buy some time. Griffin and Reyes moved to the left, while the others went right. They could hear the Empire's soldiers calling out orders, but there was no sign of them yet. "Keep moving," Griffin ordered. He knew they had little time. Their only chance now was to stay ahead of the Empire's forces, but as they turned a corner, they ran straight into a squad of Empire soldiers. The soldiers raised their weapons, their cold, emotionless eyes locked on the humans before them. The two sides stood frozen for a moment, sizing each other up. Then, without warning, the Empire soldiers opened fire. Griffin dove to the ground, narrowly avoiding the blast of a plasma rifle. He rolled and fired back, hitting one of the soldiers in the chest. Reyes wasn't far behind, taking out another. But there were too many of them. The Empire's soldiers were well-trained and heavily armed. Griffin and Reyes couldn't hold them off forever. "We need to fall back," Griffin shouted, but just as he said the words, something unexpected happened. A shot rang out from behind them, and Sergeant Nguyen fell to the ground, his body crumpling as the plasma bolt hit him square in the chest. His body jerked in pain before going still. "No," Griffin shouted, but there was no time to mourn. The enemy was closing in. Fall back, Reyes yelled, pulling Griffin toward the nearest exit. But just as they reached the door, a figure appeared from the shadows, another member of their team. It was Corporal Patterson, but she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was an Empire soldier. Griffin's eyes widened. "Patterson, what are you doing?" But before she could respond, the Empire soldier raised his weapon and aimed it directly at Griffin. He didn't hesitate. "She's been working for them all along," the soldier said coldly. "You were never supposed to make it out." Griffin's mind raced. The betrayal was like a knife to the heart. Patterson, the one person he had trusted, had sold them out. But why? What had she gained by siding with the Empire? "You were never meant to succeed," Patterson said, her voice cold. "The Empire will take Earth, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." Griffin's anger boiled over. "You betrayed us," he shouted. Before he could react, the Empire soldier fired. The shot barely missed Griffin, but it hit Reyes in the shoulder. She cried out in pain, collapsing to the ground. Griffin snapped into action, rushing to her side. "We have to go. Now," he barked, but there was no time to help her properly. They needed to escape, or they would all be killed. As he helped Reyes to her feet, Patterson's voice echoed behind them, full of venom. "It's over, Griffin. You can't stop what's coming. The Empire is unstoppable." Griffin clenched his fists. The betrayal cut deep, but there was no time for regret. They had a mission to finish, and he would see it through, no matter what. Griffin helped Reyes limp down the dark corridor, the weight of the betrayal still heavy on his mind. Patterson's cold words echoed in his thoughts. Asterisk, the Empire is unstoppable, asterisk. He couldn't believe it. Someone he had trusted, someone he had fought alongside, had turned against them. But there was no time to dwell on that now. Reyes needed medical help, and they had to escape the base before the Empire closed in. "We can't stop here," Griffin said, his voice low but urgent. "Keep moving." Reyes, grimacing with pain, nodded. "I'm with you." The halls of the Empire's base felt like a maze. Griffin's mind raced as they moved quickly but quietly, taking the shortest paths they could find. They knew the Empire's soldiers would be looking for them. Every minute that passed was a minute closer to being discovered. "I've got an idea," Reyes said suddenly, her voice strained. "There's an exit to the surface on the other side of this hall. We can use it to get out of the base." Griffin didn't hesitate. "Lead the way." They reached the end of the hallway and turned the corner, only to come face to face with a locked door. There was no time to waste. Reyes, using her military training, quickly pulled out a small device from her pocket and began to hack the door's control panel. She worked fast, her fingers flying over the keypad, trying to bypass the security systems. Every second felt like an eternity. Griffin kept his eyes on the hallway, listening for any sounds of movement. The tension was unbearable, but he knew they couldn't let the Empire find them now. They were so close. Come on," Reyes muttered under her breath. The sound of approaching footsteps made her speed up, her fingers shaking slightly from the pressure. Just as the footsteps grew louder, the door clicked open. Reyes didn't waste a second. "Let's go." They rushed through the door and into a narrow passage that led to the surface. The air felt different, fresher, more alive. They were almost out, but as they moved forward, Griffin's heart sank. A squad of Empire soldiers appeared at the far end of the passage. There was no way to avoid them now. Griffin's mind raced. He had no choice but to fight. "Reyes, can you keep going? I'll cover you." Reyes, barely able to keep up, looked at him with determination. "I can make it. Just hurry." Griffin nodded and pulled out his sidearm. He fired a quick shot, taking down one of the soldiers. But there were too many of them. The Empire's forces were relentless. He moved to the side, ducking behind a corner, to buy some time for Reyes. The soldiers didn't hesitate. They opened fire, and Griffin dove behind a nearby crate, the heat from the plasma blasts searing the air around him. He returned fire, taking down another soldier, but it wasn't enough. He knew they needed more time. "Go, Reyes," he shouted. "Get to the surface." Reyes, despite the pain in her shoulder, ran ahead. She made it to the end of the passage and pushed open a metal door leading to the outside. A blast of fresh air hit her face as she stumbled into the open. She turned back to see Griffin still fighting, holding the line. Griffin, breathing heavily, fired once more before retreating toward the door. He was out of options. The Empire's soldiers were closing in, but he couldn't leave without Reyes. As he sprinted toward the exit, a familiar voice echoed in his earpiece. "Griffin, we've got your back." It was Sergeant Nguyen. Somehow, against all odds, he was still alive. His voice crackled with static, but the message was clear. The resistance had found them. Griffin didn't hesitate. He ran faster, the sound of his footsteps mingling with the gunfire. The door was just ahead. With one last push, he dove through the door, and they were outside, the cold night air filling their lungs. The stars above them felt like a distant dream, but it was a dream that still had a chance. Behind them, the Empire's base loomed, a reminder of how close they had come to failure. But for now, they had escaped. The battle was far from over, but they had made it out alive. Griffin turned to Reyes, his face serious but relieved. "Let's get to the rendezvous point. We have work to do." And with that, they began their journey toward the next phase of their fight, one that would take them directly into the heart of the Empire itself. Griffin and Reyes limped toward the rendezvous point, their muscles aching from the fight and escape. The Empire had nearly won, but somehow they had survived. The night air was cold, the stars above them now a silent witness to their struggle. The war wasn't over, but they had bought themselves time. It was time to act, to strike back. As they reached the safe house, the rest of the team was waiting. Sergeant Nguyen, miraculously alive after being shot, was standing by a communication device. He nodded as Griffin and Reyes approached, his face a mix of exhaustion and determination. "We made it," Griffin said, breathless but relieved. "What's the plan?" "We still need to hit the Empire where it hurts," Nguyen replied, his voice serious. "We've gathered intel, but it's not enough. We need to go after their main fleet. If we can cripple their command center, we can slow down their advance on Earth." Griffin nodded. "Let's do it. We don't have time to waste." Reyes, still clutching her wounded shoulder, stepped forward. "The resistance has been coordinating with a few underground groups. We have fighters ready, but we'll need to act fast. The Empire won't wait long to retaliate." "Then we hit them first," Griffin said firmly. He turned to his team. "We don't stop until they're on the run." As the team prepped for the mission, Griffin couldn't shake the memory of Patterson's betrayal. It was still fresh, like a wound that hadn't healed. But there was no time for personal grief. The Empire had to be stopped, or Earth would fall. That was all that mattered now. Hours later, they were ready. The plan was simple but dangerous. Infiltrate an Empire communications hub, hack into their fleet's command network, and send a virus that would disrupt their ability to control their ships. It was a suicide mission, but Griffin had no choice. This was their best chance. "We're in," Reyes said as she finished setting up the hacking equipment. "We've got access to their network." The team moved quickly, infiltrating the hub and planting the virus without alerting the Empire's security. Every minute felt like an eternity as they worked, knowing that the slightest mistake could trigger an alarm. But this time, they were ready. They had learned from the past, and they knew how to stay ahead of their enemies. As the final sequence ran, Griffin glanced at Reyes. "You're sure this will work?" Reyes didn't hesitate. "This virus will cripple their fleet. It'll give Earth a chance to fight back." Suddenly, the walls of the communications hub began to shake. The alarms blared. They had been discovered. "Move," Griffin shouted, grabbing Reyes's arm and pulling her toward the exit. The team ran, the sound of Empire soldiers' footsteps getting closer. They could hear the faint hum of plasma rifles charging, but there was no time to fight. Their mission had been a success. They just needed to escape. The team burst out of the building, their feet pounding the ground. They had a few minutes to reach the extraction point before the Empire could react. But the Empire was fast, and they weren't going down without a fight. Griffin and his team reached the edge of the base just as enemy forces surrounded them. The final battle was about to begin. It was a fight for survival, a fight for Earth's future. And Griffin was ready to lead his team to victory, no matter the cost. The sound of explosions filled the air as the first shots were fired. The battle was fierce, but Griffin's team fought with everything they had. It was their final stand, and they would not go down quietly. The Empire had underestimated humanity's resolve. Earth was not a world to be conquered, not without a fight.